Hello everyone. Good afternoon from Bangladesh. So today we are in SSF Open House and we are going to talk about a framework approach to strengthen SSF guideline adoption and implementation in the South Asian region. And the framework that we are talking about is FISH framework. We will learn about that in a while. The session is arranged by Oxfam in collaboration with Sagar Shiba. And we have a few colleagues with us here in the panel today who are going to talk about these issues. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves first. So let us start with Ms. Vinutna. Ms. Vinutna Pratibandla, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Vinutna. I am working as a program officer for Oxfam for Tosha project. I am looking after Assam Brahmaputra Basin and Saralbanga Basin. Thank you. Welcome to everyone.
Thank you, Vinutnadi. I'll go next to Ms. Shanta Sohili Moina.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Shanta Sohili Moina. I am working in TROSA project as a project officer, and we are working in the Meghna Basin. Thank you.
Thank you. So then I'll go to Mr. Jyotiraj Patra to introduce himself.
Hello, colleagues. My name is Raj. I'm from India. I work for the Transboundary Rivers of South Asia program of Oxfam, and I am based in Cambodia. I very much look forward to today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajbhai. I'll go to Dr. Mahmoudul Islam from Bangladesh now to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. I am Mahmoudul Islam. I'm working as an associate professor at Sylhet Agricultural University in Bangladesh. And I also work on small-scale fisheries, particularly coastal and marine fisheries. And also some of my works also focused on small-scale fisheries guideline. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to have you all. So let us start from Moinapa. Moinapa, you are working in the ground and you have been working with fishers in Bangladesh for a while now. So if you would like to talk about some of the ground realities, I know you have a presentation. I'm going to share it on behalf of you. And if you would take us and our participants through some of the key issues and challenges that you have seen coming from the fisher folk. So I'm going to share your presentation now. Moinapa, over to you.
Thank you, Enam Bhai. Welcome everyone to my presentation, and we'll be seeing here the small-scale fisheries scenario in Bangladesh, and we are collecting information from TROSA project. So the background is the TROSA project is a 5-year regional program that works for marginalized riverine community to increase their access and control over riverine resources on which their livelihood depends. In my presentation, I'll be highlighting some major issues that fisherfolk experiences. The information here came from two major activities of the project, that is Nodi Boithok and Hilsha Watch. Enam Bhai, you should go to the next slide actually. Thank you. Nodi Boithok is basically the meeting that with the focus of river-related issues, we do Nodi Boithoks with river and community as well as other stakeholders. Hilsha Watch is a survey we do with fisher folks. The activity is designed focusing on the citizen science approaches and ensure active participation of interested community, people of youth. Next slide. So Hilsha Watch, the information collected the Kobo Collect tool in Hilsha Watch, though we moved to a distance method due to pandemic. Most of the Hilsha Watch information showed here are from these timeline. You can see that they are two of the timeline is in different fishing ban, and one is after and one is before. So the chart is showing here is the average number of family members in a fisherfolk family, which is more than 5 actually. So in the next slide, we can see that you can see the we can look into the fisher folks income and expenditure structure. The highest expenditure found in the investment of fishing, that is fishing equipment, that is maintaining fishing equipment, and the other is wages to other. So the return should be the higher to meet the capital of fisher folks. Loan repayment is another highest monthly expenditure sector for the fisher folks family, and the loan have taken from the informal sectors, and it is known that repayment pressure is huge from both formal and informal sources. Forced illegal transaction in the name of bribe, that we call it chada or charges, it found almost 1/3 of the average monthly family food cost. In the next slide, uh, we will be seeing that how big is the difference of loan and expenditure are than the income. If we see the last 4 entry points, which is our initially mentioned reference, the income is significantly dropped. It is the same time when Corona hit Bangladesh and lockdown was first effective here. And we can see that I want to highlight here that the cycle of loan is increasing, but the saving is not. And Bangladesh government provides 40 kg rice to each registered fisher folk, but considering the time range of the ban period and the number of the family members, that this is not sufficient as there are no other income. Our Nodibatuk analysis says that only 5 to 10% households get the assistance. Even during the ban period, the fishermen do not get the rice on the fishing card properly. The next slide, we can see another issue, that is the extreme enforcement of extreme enforcement. So I put here the 2 news clip. One news clip is showing that a fisherman was killed by police gunshot during Jatka ban, and the second clip is showing that the senior inspector of the respective area takes bribe of more than almost 12 USD for fishing during the 20-day ban period. And our Nodibatuk analysis says that 1 week before the operation, the people of administration started taking their nets, different kinds of nets, and find them up to $36. In the next slide, we will see another burning issue, which is sand mining. Enam bhai, next slide, please. So uncontrolled sand mining has been repeatedly reported as the cause of fish unavailability due to turbulence it causes, traveling far from the local area of fishing. We can see here that the 55% of the respondent, they have to move out of their area for fishing, and the river erosion resulting into forced migration and triggering property. All of these are causing by the sand mining. So we see that overfishing is not the only problem for fisheries decline. We should focus on also other reasons like sand mining and the population and events like that. In the next slide, we'll be looking into the fish market system. So that flowchart shows the pathway of a fish from the river to our plate. I want to highlight that the price difference of grassroots fisher folks and end customers like us is huge. And whatever the price fisher folk gets, 10% of them are cut as they take loan. So the burden of loan here, we can see that it's increasing all along. And the next slide, we'll be focusing on the women part of the community. So our Nodibatuk finding says that during ban period, police or administration threaten and intimidate women family members, and they really want to get rid of it, and they are planning to taking action for that. And the inconvenience of installment during the ban period, running the family without any income, ban period of different types, destroying boats, fishing in ban period, these all are increasing the fear of women. The next slide, we can see that. So in this slide, I put some questions here that why only fishing is considered as an activity that needs to action upon it. What about the other problems like that sand mining or the disturbance by the transportation vessel or ship? There is no specific line without the fishing zone at the navigation zone, which should be actually. And why we need alternative income generative activities? Why not improving the income from fisheries? And the next question I put here that why fisheries declining and how useful it is the ban to put the seasonal ban in its current format, and how effective is it actually? And the last question I put here that the how to include indigenous knowledge for fisheries management so that their actions can be inclusive in the policy. So this is from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Moinaba, for that. And you put some really good questions for our thought. And we will come back to these questions later on. And we'll ask our panelists to comment on that. And as we move forward, maybe before we go to the Indian situation, if you would like to talk a bit more about the trust issue, like one of the key issues that we see is because there has been a lot of communication to the fisher folk from the conservationist community. Often fisher folk see civil society organizations as an extended part of the government enforcement who do not like fishing at all. So would you like to talk about a bit more about your experience, about how you managed to build trust with the fishers and how they shared so many information over the years with you?
Thank you, Eram Bhai. Actually, the fisher folks really, the first experience of me is that they really didn't want to give the information and they thought that the information will be used against themselves if they tell something to us. And there is another thing that there are some issues like sand mining. These type of issues are the issues they get threatened for in their community. So we try to talk with them and we we use our youth volunteers of the actual location where the fishermen are, so that the trust building can be easy, and we continues to talk with them and meet with them and get them know that what can be their, what is their right actually and what should be their getting. So I think at the same point they started to trust us.
Thank you. I think it's an important point. So in your opinion, the rights-based approach to get in touch with fishers and really giving them the space to talk for themselves is something that worked for you. Thank you. Good to know that. I will now go to Vinutna Di, Ms. Vinutna Patibandla. She is leading the Assam program for Transboundary Rivers of South Asia initiative in India. So Vinutna Di, would you like to turn your video and microphone on while I share your presentation?
I think video has blocked in. Host has to be given.
Hello, is there a problem with you, Vinutna Di?
Host has blocked the video.
Is it? Can you check again? Okay.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay, I'm going to full screen now and you can start.
Yeah, can you go for first slide?
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, actually, in case of India, initially I will give the background of the India. That initially, that means might be it is new for you people. In India, there are 28 states, and it is a diverse country, and there are 8 union territories. Where in South India, only that means there are inland based fisheries are there, as well as in case of other areas, nalas and nalas are there. So ponds, nalas are there. So most of the people are depending on the agri-allied culture, agri-allied activities only, livelihoods only, and as a secondary only, wage labor and other things are there. Actually, in case of largest river is Brahmaputra basin, and already details are there, and I have given the glance that how many rivers are there and how it is flowing that, and water carried by Indian River, that those details I have mentioned here. Can you please share another? And can you please? Yeah. This is the culture where, that means in case of Northeast, from the childhood onwards, people have nurtured, and they that means they habituate to fishing and everything, that especially small scale fisheries. If you see the women and the gents also, as in case of kids, when parents has gone for work for livelihood like that, or any meetings like that also, people came together as a skill as well as a games also. They will do these type of activities in case, though it is in erosion area as well as flash flood area, but community has do fisheries regularly. If you see more children as well as women, everyone is involved in this part. In case of coastal areas, especially, they mostly depend on coastal, that means inland water, and they, as a together group, they will go to the islands and they will bring the, that means they will go for catching the fishes. Yeah, please, can you please? Then we I have already mentioned the tools, that was type of tools it was mentioned used in Northeast area. And in case of TROSHA interventions, especially we have done here is, initially we have understand the issues of the shore, that means fisherfolk community, and facilitate to do collaborate with the government officials, state fisheries department as well as SIFRI, and Hilsawat survey, where as a together from Indo-Bangladesh, we are both together, we are doing the fish conservation, that what type of nets they are using and how much income they are earning, and whether there are any savings or not, such type of things. As Shanta has shared, we have also done the similar things, and quarterly ones like that in Bangladesh they are doing, and half yearly ones we are doing in the thing, and futurely shortly we will also follow into the quarterly ones. And in case of majorly, we focused on governance, gender equity, and transboundary linkages, and fish conservation management. These are the areas where we concentrated and focused especially. And we are planning to organize the trainings with the support of SIFRI, and planning to requesting to adopt the village as a pilot. Yeah. And there are a few government schemes very recently which has come for SSF, especially those things we will share shortly. And initially we'll discuss about the challenges which we facing in North India and South India, especially on Northeast also here, majorly we have covered. Lack of knowledge on new technologies. Most of the farm community, fisher folk community, they are using only the traditional practices. So they are losing opportunities, and very few fisher folk are having the boats and nets. So, and there are no resources as well as no idea that whether government is giving the resources, like in the Jeevan Denga scheme, where port inland water transport department, they are giving the that means they are giving the 80% subsidy for the boat owners. Such type of information also they are not able to get. And fisher folks are paying 20% for the government and 20% for the owner net purpose, and government for tax purpose. They for catching the fish. So it is huge burden for the fisher folks. And due to lack of sources, most of the fisher folks are going for migration to Meghalaya and Arunachal Pradesh, including the South India, especially Kerala for biscuit factories, and Karnataka for construction purposes, etc. And protect natural resources like physical, social, especially seas and land and mangroves. Such type of things we have to protect and ourselves, and we have to take care. And social aspects, we have to take care of our community, social as well. That means when cyclone will come, then what type of protection they had need, and families or support are required. Such type of things we have to take care. And financial resources, so many schemes are there, they are unable to avail those things. And fisher folks a few times due to unknowingly they are crossing the borders of in case of India, they are crossing Bangladesh border. Such type of time, there are no guidelines, so they are facing lots of problem. So they are requesting for that, and not received any government schemes. Example, out of 12 months, they have livelihood only for 5 months only. Remaining the remaining 3 months, they have government created the ban, and remaining there is from June to October there is ban. That means flash flood will be there. So there are only out of 12 months, only 5 months only they can able to and get the income. So they are facing lots of problem. Due to COVID, they are unable to sell the production as well as unable to get the reasonable rates. And during ban period also, they are not getting any compensation or any ration. So they are requesting for it. And there is a need for GO for dry fish, especially from it was that means in South India, that because they mostly preferred for South India. That in case of they pack that one as a value addition and they sell to other areas like foreign countries also. They will send with relatives like that. In case of Northeast, they will do the dry fish, but they will eat themselves only when there is no season, because they have habituate for fish daily. Some non-veg should be there, like especially fish. Yeah. And lack of coordination between departments, especially whatever schemes are there for state government as well as central government, like CIPRI, whatever they, example, research center institutions, whatever they are sharing, and whatever state government is sharing, that means it was not, that means they themselves are not knowing both. So I think there is lack of coordination. It is especially found by, this is my opinion. And lack of awareness on technology on dry fish. So while packing the sand, while packing, they are pounding sand. So there are lots of new technology came for packing and for doing the dry fish things. So there is a special request to give the awareness on such type of issues. Yeah. Adam, can you please move? And other than that, yeah, other than that, there are also some.
Vinutnadi, would you like to continue some more, or
okay,
can we
time
go to
was
questions
over?
now?
Yeah, time was over. Yeah, sorry. I'm very sorry. Yes. Yeah, please.
If you have any final points to make, you can do that.
Okay, especially that means awareness has to increase, and some of the guidelines GO should be there, especially for border areas when they are crossing, and compensation also for human rights as it is required. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinutnadi, for sharing your thoughts. So if
and
we,
another thing is also all schemes are especially in piloting shape. That means piloting only this year only they started. So it will take more time to reach to the community. So I think we have to push that one. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll come back to you. But before that, I would like to maybe draw attention of Dr. Mahmood. I don't see Dr. Mahmood here. Yes. So I would like to invite Dr. Mahmoodul Islam from Sher-e-Bangla Agricultural University. You have, sorry, can you please turn on your video first, and audio maybe? Yeah. So, sir, you have already heard about the situation in Bangladesh and India, and there are some commonalities. Like, for instance, there is extensive fishing bans, and they are enforced extremely. Then there is this question about migration, where fishers, either from Shantapa's presentation, we have seen that fishers are having to move a lot, migrate a lot if they want to continue fishing. From Vinutnadi's presentation, we have seen that fishers are also having to migrate and look for other jobs because fishing itself is not being enough. And that was also evident from Shantapa's presentation, where she has already shown the data where the loan amount is mounting up, whereas the income is not, and fishing is declining. Then there is another point about other factors like sand mining, pollution, disturbance from navigation and other sources, which can contribute to negative impact on fisheries, but management efforts around that is not visible, whereas extreme force is being pushed upon the fishers, especially indicating that overfishing might be the only problem that is causing fisheries decline. So those are the key points that we have seen, and you have also heard the two presentations. So based on that, my first question to you is whether the small-scale fisheries guideline that FAO endorsed and many other countries and stakeholders jointly develop, whether that can offer some solution to that. Dr. Mahmood, are you here? Looks like Dr. Mahmood suddenly got disconnected. No worries. Maybe if any of other panel members, maybe Arju Bhai, Mohammad Arju, he joined us later on. He's also a practitioner in the rights-based approach to fisheries management sector. Arju Bhai, would you like to take that question? Like, do you see value in the SSF guideline that we have seen, whether that somehow offers any relief to these challenges that we are seeing in South Asia?
Yeah, thank you, Anam-bhai. I think we have Dr. Mahmoodul Islam with us again. He joined.
Okay, Dr. Mahmood, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, can you turn your video on?
Actually, due to poor net connection, if I turn video, sometimes it got disconnected. So
it's okay. So the question that we asked you is about, like, you have heard the two presentations, and there are some commonalities, like
yes,
the ban periods, or the extreme enforcement, lack of income, having to migrate to other areas, or the lack of focus on other issues other than fishing, like, for instance, sand mining, pollution, and other impacts that cause negativity in the fisheries sustainability or stock. So not much focus on that, but the entire focus is on enforcement of laws over the fishers. So do you see any solution to that using the small-scale fisheries guideline of the FAO?
Yeah, thank you very much. And also my thanks to two presenters for their informative presentations. And this presentation shed lights on some pressing issues that are affecting small-scale fisheries, not only in Bangladesh and India, but also in global in some parts, particularly in developing countries. So actually, these are the issues. Small-scale fisheries guidelines were talking about. So as we, many of us know that small-scale fisheries guideline was intended to enhance the understanding of the rule of small-scale fisheries, and also to eradicate hunger and poverty. So in doing so, it touches many aspects of small-scale fisheries, like the vulnerabilities. So what our presenter was talking about here. So in case of first, I will start with this subjective insecurity, like this what the small-scale fishers in Bangladesh are facing about, like from law enforcing agencies and also from other sources. So particularly, this small-scale fisheries guidelines was talking that the states and other parties should take necessary action so that small-scale fishers are not forcefully evicted from their land or fishing areas, and so that it must be ensured that small-scale fishers can carry out and fish and other fisheries-related activities. In doing so, they should be free from any kind of organized crime and abuse by the authorities. So appropriately, these are the issues small-scale fisheries guideline rightly say how to address all these issues and what are the responsibilities that the state should take to address these issues. And also in case of transboundary movements and migrations and also forced labor, it also suggested the government and other relevant parties that they should take necessary actions to free fishers from all those kind of injustice and social inequity. And also in case of technologies, the state should ensure that the fishing communities can get access to appropriate technology and culturally sensitive technology to take the benefits of improved technology to improve their livelihood. So I think all those issues presented here are very much focused in small-scale fisheries guidelines. So to address all those issues, we need to forward to implement small-scale fisheries guidelines where appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmood. So I have another question for you. So it's quite clear that the SSF guideline has remedies, like it offers solutions to many of the challenges that the fishers are facing. But the question is, why is it not being adopted? So if there are anything that we need to do, so what needs to be done so that the governments in these regions or other stakeholders adopt or more, I would say, follow the guideline?
Well, we can say that it's something like panacea for all problems. So it's also very tough to implement. There are some issues here mentioned in the SSF guidelines, like human rights, women empowerment, which are politically in some cases maybe controversial, and also there are conflict that taking like through a small-scale fisheries, so there might be conflict with other stakeholders also. And we also know that the voice of small-scale fishers are not very much heard in case of policy matters, or our policymakers are not so much inclined to hear what the fishermen are talking about. And also these small-scale fisheries are not well known to many of us, even the small-scale fishers. They and organizations or civil society organizations who are working on these issues, they are not very much aware of this, what the small-scale fisheries guidelines talking about. So this kind of unawareness and ignorance of the small-scale fisheries guidelines, and also lack of interest and from decision makers or proactive activities even from small-scale fisheries organizations may serve as a barrier why these guidelines are not implementing. And it's a very huge area of focus. So it's not very easy that it could be implemented it's not like an on-off action. So it's something like an continuous actions to improve the situation of small-scale fishers, and maybe the full implementation of small-scale fisheries guideline may be the ultimate goal. So it will take time, and also and to make small-scale fisheries guidelines towards implementation, to rule out the process, the first of all, I think is political will is very much necessary. The policymaker and the state should acknowledge the importance of small-scale fisheries and its contribution to society, to economy. So they should encourage and appreciate the role of small-scale fisheries. Then the political will come to implement this guidelines. And also another thing is to implement these guidelines. Every stakeholders have something to do, like the government, civil society organizations, researcher, academia.
Looks like we have lost Dr. Mahmood again. Dr. Mahmood, can you hear us?
And also, to do this, there should be an institutional linkage among different stakeholders, and also there need to be, and this small scale fisheries guideline is a new development instrument, and what I said before, that it's still unknown to stakeholders who will implement it and for whom the guideline was developed. In both cases, it's very much unknown to many parts of these stakeholders. So there should be there should be something, awareness building among the stakeholders, so that they can raise their voice, or they can take necessary actions to implement these SSF guidelines, particularly in Bangladesh and India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmood. We will come back to you and other panelists. Do any of you, Arju Bhai, would you like to add anything with Dr. Mahmood on that?
Thank you, Anam Bhai. And I think Dr. Mahmood already explained the complexities of implementing SSF guideline in a country like Bangladesh, probably also India. But at the same time, I would say the Northeast Indian Ocean, Bangladesh, and parts of India, in terms of small scale fisheries, this region is a unique position. It's not just about that's important, the well-being, rights, and justice, equity for small scale fishers. But in countries like Bangladesh and parts of India, this is not just about that, because the number of fishers extremely high, and this should not lead to necessarily a conversation about overfishing, because of the fishing grounds, because of being a riverine country like Bangladesh, and having a huge vast amount of wetland still. So this is about good job opportunities and economic and social well-being of millions of families, unlike any other countries or region in the world. So I think Dr. Mahmood is very right about this guideline. It has something for everyone, and at the same time, this is voluntary. So I think in addition to a voluntary SSF guideline in countries like Bangladesh, we should have the focus from organization like Oxfam or other organizations who are working for eliminating or reducing poverty, emphasize on other regional or even national framework policy on laws, because it takes new efforts, extra effort to introduce the SSF guidelines like SSF guideline to policymakers, to other stakeholders. But you already have other regional policies, mechanism, national laws, institutional policies that the government is already committed to implement. They are mandated to do it. They are very much familiar with it. And small scale fisheries, because millions of families are involved with this. This is not just about rights and justice in our natural resource management. This is also for the government and other policymakers. Despite corruption, despite absence of rule of law or the bad situation in rule of law, governments in countries like ours, there is at least committed to some extent providing good job opportunities in rural areas. And for rural tours, the subsistence fishing, the artisanal fishing is the lifeline of millions of families. I'm repeating the number, of course, because this is important. So I think we should, when we are working to introduce the SSF guideline, make it better known, we should also link it to other regional commitments, other national mandates, and other priorities that the government is already committed to implement.
Thank you, Arju Bhai. That was also helpful. So if we got it correctly, so it's a continuous process, it's voluntary, and it needs to be connected with other means so that it becomes more applicable even legally. And the other part is small scale fisheries is not just about fisheries improvement, it's also about the lives and livelihoods of millions, and both needs to be prioritized. when we plan for sustainability. So I'll now go to Raj Bhai, Dr. Jyotiraj Patro. He is leading the regional project of Oxfam, Transboundary Rivers of South Asia. And Raj Bhai, we know that you have this approach of fish framework, which is something that we like a lot, and how civil society organizations and other actors can really help in the process of improving the lives of small-scale fishers and also the small-scale fisheries itself. I think it's relevant, and we would like to hear more from you about that. I'm going to share your presentation from my screen, and the session is over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Inam Bhai. Let me start by highlighting the point that Dr. Mahmood shared. Like, there is less awareness among policymakers, among various stakeholders about the guidelines. So the fish framework that we are talking about here, in our opinion, is a small effort that could facilitate more dialogue and more discussion among various stakeholders about the guideline, and also particularly focusing on the inclusion part of it. So Inam Bhai, next slide, please. What we are talking about in this fish framework, and I think I will skip this one because previous speakers have already covered it. So let me try and highlight what is central to the fish framework. So fish framework is a preliminary work that has developed based on the initial learnings and insights from our work in the Transboundary Rivers of South Asia, TROSA for short, program in particularly with the fisheries sector in Bangladesh and India. So both Moina and Vinutna, they had this brilliant presentation on some of the findings so far. And if you think of the whole idea of the guideline, the SSF guideline, what it basically does, it is an effort to complement the code of conduct for responsible fisheries, to achieve sustainable small-scale fisheries through a human rights-based approach. And I think this is very critical to what we do in Oxfam and also as part of TROSA, taking the rights-based approach to these small-scale fisheries. And the whole idea of the fish framework, it starts with F, which stands for facilitating safe spaces of dialogue among different stakeholders. And this is kind of a bottom-up approach of engagement, particularly of the marginalized SSF communities. So, for example, which two of the processes which both Moina and Vinutna highlighted, Nodi Boitak, that is riverine meeting, Hilsa Watch. And this is kind of more bottom-up civil society, community-led initiatives. And this is absolutely critical when we're talking about bringing the communities, bringing the marginal voices to the fore, and in the process of facilitating their engagement with the governments, the duty bearers, and also most importantly, the private sector. And I think one of the key learning from our engagement through this Nodi Boitak and Hilsa Watch has been also engagement with the private sector, particularly the informal financiers and others who play a critical role in the entire SSF value chain. So I think this is a critical component of the fish framework. So this is about facilitating the safe spaces for dialogue. The second one is around initiating a regional dialogue, particularly among countries and in the Bay of Bengal region. And this is where I think something that Arjun was also referring to. Because if you look into the whole small-scale fisheries and the fisheries more from an ecosystem perspective, although the small-scale fisheries might be located within the boundaries of different countries, but if you look into the whole system, the Bay of Bengal, the transboundary rivers that flows across many different countries, these ecosystems are critical. And I think because of the shared nature of these natural resources on which these small-scale fisheries are dependent on, it is critical to look at those dialogues and those engagements more from a basin or more from a regional perspective. And I think this is critical more also from how can we bring in governments from a region to talk about these issues and take more concerted action at the regional level. And by that, they can mobilize more national level action. So for example, in the Bay of Bengal region, we have a sub-regional body called BIMSTEC, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. And this particular sub-regional body has already prioritized fisheries as one of the core area out of the 6 priority sectors. And they also had member states, they also have committed to continued cooperation in conservation, management, and sustainable use of marine resources in the region. So these are instruments which are already available. These are platforms which are available. So I think the opportunity for us is already there in terms of initiating such regional level dialogues. The S in the fish framework stands for strengthening the existing fisheries value chain to make it more inclusive, responsible, and environmentally sustainable. And I think this is also important from the perspective of looking at the entire value chain and trying to address the underlying causes of vulnerability and risks across the value chain, particularly those related to the people who are engaged in, but also trying to have some innovative approaches. There was a session in this open house, I think, which was talking about the circularity, the circular economy approach in SSF. And I think these are some of the new areas of engagement through which we can really ensure that the small-scale fisheries value chains are becoming more sustainable, but also it's benefiting the people who are really engaged in it. So for example, certification programs, and there are other ways through which we can ensure that the fisheries and the products, they get good market value, there is established markets linkages, and responsible and ethical business practices are promoted, and thereby it also increases the opportunities for more inclusive business models for small and traditional fisheries. So that was the S part of it. And the last one, which is on H, which is harnessing the use of technologies for better monitoring, reporting, and management of fisheries, including generating credible information on the health of the ecosystems and fisheries, the extent of benefit shared with fishing communities, and the challenges they face. And I think one of the things that Vinodana was also referring to is with regard to the small-scale fisher communities not having access to technologies, for example, gears and other things, but also at risk when there is they are not able to access the information, either it's the market information or climate information, for example, during disasters and things like that. So I think there is a great opportunity for harnessing the use of technology for better monitoring the fisheries, and thereby empowering the fishers community in terms of their efforts, and also supporting them in terms of market linkages. So this was briefly about the fish framework that we have drafted and initiated. And I think this is an area, this is particularly an area where we see fish framework as an entry point or as a tool which could further foster dialogue on different stakeholders, including the private sector, and thereby bringing in the whole idea of equity and justice by having more multi-sectoral approaches, and also bringing different stakeholders to take complete action. And one of the in terms of the key suggestions as moving forward, what I see is this fish framework and related efforts are very critical, and a stepping stone, which is more importantly towards bringing the whole focus on the rights-based approach. So that is core to the whole fish framework, as I said. And I think this is important, and this is also an opportunity to foster more dialogue. That is one. And second important thing I would like to highlight about the fish framework and the work that we do is issue linkages, which is very critical. So for example, small scale fisheries are often treated in silos. It's often perceived and approached as a kind of a traditional fisheries thing that we have been doing. And the seasonal ban is definitely, in my opinion, one element of it. But if you look into the whole fisheries sectors, the whole fisheries sector, SSF included, is impacted and influenced by many policies and changes taking place outside the fisheries sector. For example, climate change, regional trade, other socio-ecological drivers such as large-scale illegal river and coastal sand mining, like Moina was referring to industrial projects, water and river pollution, including plastic pollution in our river systems and ocean, which is a big topic now. Frequent disasters like floods and droughts, the recent cyclones we know in the coastal parts of India and Bangladesh, droughts, they affect the ecosystem services which sustain these as small-scale fisheries. So linking these issues together is very critical. And as Arju was pointing out, we should be looking at commitments which the governments have already made. Two particular examples: the Paris Agreement, the climate change, and the Sustainable Development Goal, in particular Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is on related to fisheries. And the most important thing is the ongoing food system summit dialogue, which talks about food security and food sovereignty and all these things. So these are hooks through which we, as civil society organizations and community-based groups, can take this discussion and the dialogue forward in terms of strengthening equity and justice in the small-scale fisheries sector. And the third one, which I have already highlighted, is the need and opportunity for regional cooperation. And we do have frameworks, we do have sub-regional opportunities and bodies which are there, but only thing we need to do is kind of amplify the issue in those forums and try to highlight how those trade or those natural resources cooperation frameworks could be critical for promoting more sustainable small-scale fisheries on which millions of our livelihoods are dependent on the region. So Inam-bhai, I think I will stop here and happy to answer any query. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajbhai. That was wonderful. A good summary of the approach that we are following. So if I pick from Dr. Mahmood Islam, I will now request all of the panel members to put your videos on, and so we can have a discussion now around all the propositions that we have seen. I hope that's all right with you. Moina Appa, Binut Nadi, Arju Bhai. Okay, so let us start. So we have seen Dr. Mahmood was emphasizing on one of the challenges of the SSF guideline was being that it's rights-based. And when we were looking at the perspective brought by Moina Appa or Binut Nadi, those were also focusing on some of the areas of conflict between the law enforcers and the fishers. And that's also linked with the rights-based approach, whether fish is in the common pool resources is considered a right, or is it a commodity, or is it a state owned asset? What is it actually? And if we look at the current management regimes, the ban periods and everything that Moina Appa and Binut Nadi was talking about, and then later on Rajbhai explained that it's also linked with the larger other frameworks, even outside fisheries. So in that backdrop, so if we have the fish framework as an approach for civil society organizations and others to act, if we have the SSF guideline, which is voluntary but still can help transform the current management regimes to a rights-based approach, rights-based one. So what is our way forward? Rajbhai already proposed regional dialogues linking with other different platforms. I would now come to each of you for your takeaway. Like, what do you suggest we should do next? Like, we have the frameworks, we have existing capacity of many organizations and partners. What can we do to transform the current situation? Moina Appa, well, I'll start with you. Top 2 or 3 action points that you can suggest based on what we have discussed today.
So Inam Bhai, thank you. According to my opinion, when we are discussing with private sector in Bangladesh here, we see that they are very eager to take a new step or a way forward to solve the fishermen's problem. So I think we can share it with them and see what their opinion on that and what their suggestions on that, and then we can share it with the government officials also, And we can also have a policy analysis to see that where it can be incorporated easily, so to follow. And of course, we need to collaborate regionally to implement this one.
Thank you, Monapa. So 3 points from you. One is about working with the private sector to offer solutions, so market-based solutions. Second is about policy analysis and see how the voluntary guideline can be incorporated through more legal frameworks and more policy frameworks that we have, or embedding it, or looking at international instruments, as Arjubhai was saying. And the third one is about dialogues. Thank you. I'll now go to Vinut Nadi. Vinut Nadi, would you like to have your takeaways and suggestions?
Hello. Yeah. That means, as Shanta said, private sector has to include, as well as civil society organizations has also should be part of it, where they can their inputs also has to take, and they have to take inputs from community, as well as they can face. They can able to share that one, as well as
can you please repeat? Vinutnadi, can you please repeat your last point?
Hello, yeah, am I audible? Enough?
Yes, you are. Can you please repeat from your last point?
Yeah, last point, that means involving the civil society organizations actively, and they can able to facilitate the inputs, whatever is the community is facing the problems, they can able to facilitate the problems to solve in the normal manner. Yeah, as a solution, they can able to facilitate the process. Yeah, and also we have to incorporate that if community is crossing the border, what should be the that means process, and how to resolve the scenario. Those things has to mention in detail in guidelines. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinut Nadi. So you highlighted the issues around fisheries, small-scale fisheries in the border areas, how we can manage that, how new guidelines and rules can be incorporated to facilitate transboundary fisheries management and giving rights for fishers to even cross borders if required with safety. And then the need for civil society organizations to facilitate.
And CSOs also can able to facilitate trainings, especially the capacity building for the community. In other projects, they are using CSOs as a major priority. In case of currently in India, CSO, that means they are not giving priority for NGOs, especially for fisheries. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have seen the role of CSOs in creating awareness about need for conservation, but we, as you suggested, we can also involve them in the capacity building effort if a transformation is required. So I'll now go to Dr. Mahmood. Dr. Mahmood, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, many of my points already came up with Moinapa's points also. For me, I think I would like to answer one of. I would like to comment on one of the point raised by Arjubhai. The voluntary guideline is not a stand-alone process, so it's clearly explained that the voluntary guidelines should be explained and applied in line with the national and international legal instrument and obligations. So there is a huge opportunity to facilitate a small-scale fisheries guideline along with all other national and international obligations which the state and countries made to implement. So this is an area of potential collaboration and create an enabling environment. For me, what need to do in case of implementation, I think it's important to strengthen small-scale fisheries own organizations so that they could raise their voices. So in that case, civil society organizations can play a very important role, because in Bangladesh at grassroots level, civil society organization is very much spread up, and also they have an important role to make awareness building at the grassroots level. So in that case, they can play an important role. And also, it's important to find out the opportunities which Mainapa mentioned, that we need to analyze that what our policy on natural resource management, disaster management, climate change impact. So all in all those cases, we need to identify the area of common concern among those legal and policy instruments and small scale fisheries guidelines. So that it can be said that there are already something in our policy and legal instruments. So it could be easier if we to incorporate small scale fisheries guideline into if there are something already exist. So that's from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmood. It was actually good. Like, you brought in a very important point, like small scale fisheries organizations. Like, that's also something that we share from the field, that working or strengthening the organizations of the fisherwomen and fishermen themselves. It's one of the least, I would say, invested in areas, and that can actually help CSOs to strengthen their work also. And the need for finding opportunities in the existing legislatures. I would like to have a follow-up question to you, Dr. Mahmood, on that. So, as the SSF guideline also acknowledges the national legislatures, how about areas where they contradict? If there are any contradictions in national legislatures, where maybe especially from a rights-based approach, if anything needs to be changed, do you think there is a potential, like commonalities, of course, that's something we can start with, but if there is any contradiction, so in your opinion, what should be the role of CSOs or other actors to deal with those contradictions?
I think I'm not a legal expert about this, but as a researcher, my opinion is, I think there is not so many spaces where there can be any contradictions. So if there is any contradictions, I think civil society can play a role of advocacy, like to change. There are maybe some laws in Bangladesh which for those laws there are complaints and there are protests from different segment of the society. In the same way, I think if there is any contradiction or conflict with existing law and what is said in small scale fisheries guideline, there could be dialogue with the stakeholders and the state, how to compromise the gap, and so I think it's on the main way is the like fostering collaboration and dialogue with stakeholders is the best way to compromise this kind of discrepancy, this kind of gap in case of our national legal framework and small scale fisheries guideline. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmood. That was good. So I will now move to Arju Bhai, Mohammad Arju. So Dr. Mahmood already and others raised an important point about strengthening the grassroots organization, especially those of the fishers. And you were also talking about linking with other initiatives, other global platforms earlier. So where do you see the bridge? I also know that from our personal conversations that the lack of sheer investment for the infrastructure of the small scale fisher organizations, like having a computer in the age of COVID, things like that. Where do you see action points for us, for different stakeholders, from grassroots to the international level?
Thank you, Anam bhai. And I personally, I don't think, the problem of disorganized fishing community is not as such a problem, because the fishing community, the artisanal fishers, particularly in inshore and nearshore fisheries, they are disorganized for no reason. The reason behind this disorganization is that they can't, in a way, see that they have a long-term stake, because it is very difficult to find. If you go to in coastal areas in Bay of Bengal, that a fisherman is in this profession for a longer period than 6, 7, or 8 years. There are some who continue it, but the number is very low. They are in a mode of back and forth during fishing and other livelihood options also. And just not only that, this is also related to, in a way, forced migration and migration because of climate change. If you remember, the refugees and migrants in the Mediterranean Sea, not all of the refugees are from war-torn countries like North Africa or Middle East. From I think at least for 5 or 6 years, Bangladesh was the single largest country contributing to the flow of refugees in the Mediterranean. And a large number of these migrants or refugees, they are from fishing communities, or at least young adults from these families who don't see a future anymore in artisanal or subsistence fishing. So I think the point I'm trying to make is the next generation of fishers, even the people who are going fishing every day now, they don't even see their children in fisheries. They don't want to keep their children in fishing anymore. So I think, just by bringing some fisher folk to NGO engagement or meetings in government, after lots of arrangement, how much effort you do need to put to bring a fisherman to a meeting. So it's not an organic process, and it won't be if we don't try to address the underlying reason. So I'll be very brief. I'll make a point, just one top priority on. I think in countries like Bangladesh, what we should prioritize before we even think about, for example, attracting private sector investment in fisheries, or trying to build new organization of fisher folk. Because, for example, there are lots of effort to build, to develop, to bring together fisher folk under new organization. But again, people who have very little to do with fishing, they did take all the privileges from this organization. And there are some efforts to bring private sector investment in small scale fisheries in Bangladesh. And in fact, very significant effort if you look it from a different perspective. For example, when the marine fisheries in Bangladesh was enhanced through a number of projects funded by international donors and development partners. What happened actually, we got private sector investment. We have now mechanized fishing, very powerful engines, bigger boats, more gears, more gill nets, even other navigation and GPS equipment. The target was that the traditional coastal and nearshore, inshore fishing communities will be empowered, their fishery will be enhanced, food security will be enhanced. But in absence of any kind of recognition of their tenure rights or any kind of recognition of their traditional management, those projects ultimately failed to involve those fishers, and new investors came in, local investment, local powerful people, money lenders, and other people from non-formal financial investment. And the total offshore, even now nearshore fishery slipped out of hand of local fishing communities, particularly traditional fishing communities. So this is, a very, I think, notable example how even well-intentioned effort by FAO, this mechanization process was done by FAO under several projects. So I think before doing any of this, the civil society organization or NGOs like Oxfam should really working hard on and make it very clear to the government and other policymakers that we have these decades of examples that without recognizing the customary rights, without more procedural justice, you can't have substantive justice or distributive justice for fishers. We need to acknowledge through our statutory provisions that even in inland water estate that are still leased out as a continuation of colonial era privatization of environmental commons, we need to stop this, and we need to we need new provisions, new legal instrument policies, so that the small scale fishers, artisanal fishers, they have exclusive access, they have exclusive rights about fishing. I don't know, for this session, it will be very difficult to discuss the details, but it's possible. It's possible to establish a legal regime, to reform the legal regime, so that artisanal fishers and the small scale fishers, they really have a stake. They have access and very exclusive ownership, traditional tenures in the fishing grounds, in the ecosystems and habitat. Only after that, this sense of ownership, this stake will be, I think, recognized by the fishers. Other than that, it will be same old enhancement projects, and I think it will not be successful. But I'm very much hopeful if, for example, if you can say that in Nijumdip area, in the surrounding shallow coastal oceans, the local fishing community have exclusive rights. They have some kind of titles, the likes of which you are now seeing in even African countries, where the traditional tenure rights are being recognized through statutory provisions. Then you will get the fishers that, okay, this is my water, I am responsible for it, and I will fight for it even if I need it. Yeah, I think I have taken much time than I promised. Thank you.
I think I'm having a internet connectivity problem. Let me fix that. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Anam bhai.
Okay. Thank you, Arju bhai, for all the points. And I think it's well said already. Like, without recognition of the rights of the fishers legally, not just for a voluntary guideline, there is very little that can be done. And I think it's also linked with the point that Vinod Nadi was making earlier, that when we see so many pilot projects to resolve the issue and nothing permanent, that creates a problem itself. And the link between the forced migration and the unjust management of the small scale fisheries, I think that's also very valid and really important for us to focus on. So we have got the feedback from all the panelists, and Rajbhai, you have already heard. And from you, we would like to know, like this will be the concluding statement from the forum. From you, we would like to know more about what agencies like Oxfam, who facilitate partnership, can do in this situation where there is a need for more permanent solutions or long-term solutions, like recognizing the rights of the fishers, really providing a transformative change for justice. And at the same time, there are instruments like SSF guideline, the approach of fish framework, or even the national and international legal systems. What can be done?
Thanks, Sinam bhai. So in terms of this, the way forward, what I would suggest is the following. So first is, I think we have to deepen our engagement in this space, particularly from the rights-based perspective. All my previous speakers have clearly highlighted the need for more space for the fishers community, the need for empowerment, capacity building. So I think civil society groups, particularly rights-based organizations like Oxfam and others, I think we should deepen our engagement in this space, given the amount of opportunity we see around. And as I was referring to in my presentation, need to talk about the linkages of fisheries. So if we just talk about fisheries as a standalone issue, it might not get the kind of attention and buy-in from different stakeholders as you expect to. So linking it to different opportunities, like, as I said, climate change, we have the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, you have the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, just to strengthen more business, responsible business frameworks and participation. So that is, I think, one area in terms of deepening the engagement. Secondly, is we should continue our facilitation and convening capacity in bringing different stakeholders together. And here I see a lot of opportunities for these kind of bottom-up processes like Hilsa Watch or Nodi Boitok to become part of the mainstream development dialogue processes at various levels, particularly at the subnational or the local level, which provides a lot of space and opportunity for local fishers communities to come and share their concerns, their ideas and thoughts. So I think that is pointer number 3. The third one I would like to highlight is strengthen more women and youth leadership in small-scale fisheries. Women and small-scale fisheries is, I think, one of the areas which is less talked about. Mostly women in the post-harvest space are often highlighted, but I think I try and highlight how women and youth play a very critical role across the small-scale fisheries value chain and building their capacity and their skills and knowledge to participate in some of those high-level decision-making processes, and I think that is critical. The fourth one I would like to highlight, again, building on the civil society's capacities to facilitate the science policy interface, and that I think that's very critical when you talk about the small-scale fisheries issues. A lot of the science is often sort of disconnected or disjointed from what's happening on the ground. And as you were referring to your earlier remarks, I think it was to Moina, in terms of how do you build that trust. So I think this trust building and trust deficit thing that we often encounter between the scientific and the research community and the fishers on the one side, the civil society groups and others. So I think bridging the gap in terms of the science policy interface would be one. And the last one is, as I said, and I keep on emphasizing, like organizations and programs like ours could add more value by bringing and connecting these dots in different countries more from the sub-regional and regional perspective. So taking kind of a basin-wide approach or a regional approach to the whole small-scale fisheries in the Bay of Bengal region, bringing different countries, different stakeholders together, and leveraging the opportunities which are there at the regional level, in my opinion, will bring in more kind of buy-in from the governments. But we should not also forget that it's mostly the local level initiatives, national level dialogues and forums which are also powerful. So we need to ensure how these two different processes, or the multiple processes of dialogue and exchange, they kind of complement each other, and we are able to amplify the
Rajbhai, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, so I was just, sorry, Nambai. So I was saying, I think this is this conversation will help, take us forward into the international year of additional fisheries, and forums like this would be able to engage more from the regional perspective. But given our work with the communities, we can bring in more community voices to these kind of forums and dialogues. Thank you, Nambai.
Thank you, Rajbhai. I will now try to sum up the call from this session. So we acknowledge that small-scale fisheries is not something that operates in silo. It's linked with the broader world. So we need to approach it from a systematic lens. So we need to address everything, what's happening in the world: climate change, forced migrations, economic inequality, and alienation overall for the most marginalized communities. So we considered the broader perspective. We don't call for another project, but a transformative process that will truly empower organically, not as an imposed process, the most marginalized fisherwomen and fishermen and their next generations, so that they don't have to move away from their traditional means of life. And also, we want the civil society organizations to work more, especially to find out solutions and evidences from a science and policy interface. We want the recognition of customary rights of the fisherwomen and fishermen in the small-scale fisheries sector, and a more distributive justice. And we want all actors, civil society, private sector, and government, to work together to truly empower the fishers so that they can have the life that they deserve while we enjoy a sustainable small scale and large scale fisheries. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you from Oxfam, Sagar Sheba, and everyone who is really trying to make a change.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.